Yep.
Uh, but what's not new, what is not new, is those statues. Those statues that everybody's pulling down. I have a very weird thought process about the statues. I want to hear your thoughts, and I'll tell you what my feeling is on it. Uh, what are your thoughts about all these? I guess there's just not just statues, but they're anything that shows the Confederate times, you know, of the U.S.
So it's kind of hard for me. I feel like I'm somewhere in between. I mean, I live right outside of Gettysburg, so you know, there's a lot there. And how I view it is, it to a certain extent, it's still a piece of history. Um, in a place such as Gettysburg, where it's a history laden thing and not like a singular statue that to bring something, I feel like Gettysburg and places like that are telling a story um, of history. Do I like it? Do I love it? Absolutely not. Um, but I don't have to go if I don't want to. It's it's hard for me because I was hearing some things. So in my mind, okay, do we need to change the dollar bill? I mean, not the dollar bill, but do we need to change money because George Washington had slaves? You know, there there comes a point where some of it's just history, and maybe some of the stuff we've gone through, we're not going to like everything. But I think there are on the other side some statues that do need to come down because of what they mean and what they stand for. I don't believe maybe sometimes an individual statue is telling the story, but if you go to Gettysburg, which some people may know Gettysburg, some people don't, um, I think that that is telling a story of that time rather than trying to promote the Confederate, trying to promote um, slavery.
Yeah.
We have a beautiful restaurant down where I am called the Dobbin House, and it was a that's where slaves went to be to hide out. And when you go inside, they got a lot of the underneath the floors and stuff like that. You can kind of look and see, and it's kind of cool. It's kind of historical. So I wouldn't want somebody coming around and being like, "Oh, well, that has to do with slavery. That needs to go." Like, no, that's part of history. So as I that's telling a story. That's not promoting slavery. That's not promoting a hanging. That's not promoting violence. That's not doing anything. So that's why it's hard for me because I see the side of when it's history telling a story compared to singular. I look at Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant has a statue. God rest his soul, and um, he had a huge allegation. I'm not going to say Kobe needs to come down because of that allegation per se, but I could see where somebody that had that happen to them wouldn't be happy to take a look at a statue in which people could be praising the person when he did an act and they feel a certain way. So it's hard for me because I feel like I'm between a rock and a hard place where I understand both sides of the viewpoint. It's just very hard because I do think that there is a true distinction between a storytelling of a statue or statues, plural, um, and a singular that represents negativity.
Yeah, 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 exactly. Yeah, I echo those.
You
I
can go
echo
ahead,
those
Faye.
thoughts. Go ahead, Fred.
Nah, I'm saying Faye can go if you want to go next.
No, you can go ahead, Dante.
Okay. All right. I feel that any statues that are representing that, I think they need to come down. because the whole thing is, all right, so you got people that, I know a lot of people, they're going to say, well, this is my heritage, and this is what it represents. It didn't represent this and that. Um, However, but you have another group of people that feel that, when they see it, it brings anger and frustration because they know uh, what it means. They know what they stood for. And that's the hard part, because you have people that they'll have a blind eye to certain things because they don't want to see it. And they'll be like, nah, that's not what it is. Like, I remember having conversations up north in PA about people with the Confederate flag. Me being from Florida, I'm like, all right, if I see somebody in Florida with it, I definitely know that they understand completely what that means. You not being from Florida or the southern state, you are from north, and you walking around with it, you probably don't know. You probably don't know the full story about what's going on, because they don't really, from what I know, they don't do a lot of history when it comes to that kind of stuff up there in PA. But down here, people know, because that's it's ingrained. So when you see something like that, and people choose to have a blind eye and be like, no, that's not what it means. It's this and it's that. But if you have a group of people and you want peace, and um, and you see that it's something that bothers someone, you would do something like that. Because, I mean, if you think about it, they don't have a bunch of Hitler's statues around. Why is that? That's a part of history. But everybody knows that it's not right. Everybody knows that that's offensive. But I agree with what Jarrell said. I don't have a problem with having it in a museum. Gettysburg, I went there when I was in college, and it was very nice. I was very disappointed though how they had the black and white stuff or whatever, but it is what it is. But if you have a museum, that's different from having it out in public. It's different from having that stuff right in front of a courthouse, where where it's going to be seen by multiple people, different ethnic groups. So that's my problem, is that if they had Hitler's statues out and about, okay, I can understand it, but they don't. And it's like, why do black people always have to fight and claw to get like certain things? Like the Jewish people, they didn't have to do that. Everybody respects that. They don't want to have that out there. But when it comes to black people, it's like, it's part of our heritage. Just get over it. On you, Faye.
So, question to help me better understand. So, these statues that are being torn down, this is at like colleges or universities and public places like that?
Public places, yeah. Public places. It doesn't have to be a college. It can be like City Hall or courthouse and stuff like that. Just around different areas in the South. Mostly the South. I mean, I'm looking at a chart right now, and it's. I mean, of course, it's not going to be mostly North, because why would they put the losers up?
Exactly, and that's the other thing. Why you want to represent a loser?
And I understand history is important, but we have museums for that. That's what they built museums for. So I'll let Faye go. Then I'll clean it. I'll come back and tell you how I view about it and why I view a certain way.
So I pretty much agree. So hearing kind of both points, Dante and Jarrell being on different sides of the spectrum there, I see more so where it does have a place with history. It is kind of what it is. So I could see museums and things like that, to where you can take your kids or whatever, and you can teach them, you take them there to teach them about, this is what the history was. So why not show people this is what we are now? by getting rid of those things. So I can definitely see get rid of those things in those public places and stuff like that. So we're all equal and feel united and stuff like that, and have that stuff in a place. You can go to Gettysburg, you can go to a museum, and you can learn about the history, and that be that. So that's pretty much how I see that.
Yeah, if I could, I know Byron, you're gonna finish
Go
up, but
Go ahead.
so like to Dante's point, I the other side that I failed to mention is we also got to understand that when things are getting named and things are getting statues are being put up, the full context isn't really being put out there. And I think to Dante's point, when we come of knowledge of more information and we become more informed, that decision of that statue may have to change at that point. And I think it's our prerogative as people to do that, because if I tell my child, don't touch the burner, and one day they go and touch the burner, they're going to learn, oh, okay, it hurts, I'm not going to do it again. So I think the same thing, and when we learn the hurt that certain things have caused, I think it does make the need for us to take a pause and say, okay, is this statue, is this name on a building, is this flag per se down in Mississippi, is it worth staying up knowing all the hurt that it caused? So I think to Dante's point, you are right there, 110%. Like I said, for me, Gettysburg and the historical stuff, I have no problem with when it's storytelling. I just, like you said, I think the biggest issue is just when we have these things that people, again, I can put up a statue anywhere, and I don't know how it makes people feel. They can be some remarkable person, but when it comes to light, some of the stuff that happened and some of the hurt that it caused, I think we also got to take that pause. So, Dante, I think you were spot on right there.
So let me give you just perspective. We got Black History Month, right? And oftentimes people who are not Black ask, why do we have a Black History Month? Then Blacks ask, why is Black History only 1 month and in the shortest month of the year? Then we look at our textbooks and we learn British literature, U.S. history, world history, but we never learn history of people that look like us, other than Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks. Who else are they putting out there now? I don't know what they're doing these days because I've been out of school for a while. But you know what I'm saying? The commercial, the ones who are commercial, they can soften those blows with that. I have no issue with the statues if you're going to do right by what it means and represent and show what it means. Also, give credit to where credit's due. And not only did white people fight in these wars, Black people fought in these wars, but you don't see any representation of Black people in any history books about any of these wars. We're in all these wars, yet when we come back home, we were always considered second rate, or not even citizens of this nation. So when we talk about these issues with statues and flags and stuff like that, it's because we feel like those things are getting more representation than the actual people that actually helped build this country. And we can go back and forth and say slavery is over, all this kind of stuff. But the reality of it is, when we open textbooks, when we open anything, look on TV, it doesn't represent everyone in America. It represents the majority of America, and I'm not saying majority, it represents the majority look of America, which is white. And that's a bad thing to do for people who are already feel oppressed. Because when I see something that also shows and gratifies or that says this oppression happened under these people, and I have a statue of this showing you this, and I don't have any representation for my people or anything great that they've done for this great nation to show that we are important also, you want to take that stuff down. You want to say, you know what, this is not worth it. They weren't heroes, you know, they weren't great people. They were tyrants, you know. So with that being said, we have to, I think we as a whole nation has to gauge that there's a lot of changes that have to be made. And the reason why these statues are something that's important now is because Black people don't feel valued yet. As much as we say we're free in America, there's no representation, or there's nothing that shows that we're free when it comes to those kind of issues. Because when it comes to those issues, as soon as we bring it up, if we say Black Lives Matter, it's all lives matter, blue lives matter. When we say, hey, systemic racism, it affects us now, that's a myth. You see what I'm saying? It's always anything that we have an issue with, it's always discredited, then it's demonized. So when you have someone trying to protect a statue, the flag, all these physical things over a human life, you no longer give me any kind of idea or mindset that I want to think about what you feel about this. I don't even want to care about it. I say take it down. Now, whether I care about those statues in itself, no. But when it's at that point of, I'm at this breaking point where, okay, you've now said I don't matter, so why should I care about your property? You said this doesn't matter, why should I care about your flag? Do you get what I'm saying? So I think it comes to the point where we have to figure out how to include, if we're going to include history, we have to put Black history in there. There's a lot of things that are Black created that doesn't show up in America. You know, it gets brushed under the side, or we'll take advantage of it, but we won't give the credit to it. So why are we giving credit to the losers of the North and the South over people who made this country great, even though they were considered property at that time? They still made this country great. So why are we giving more credit to people who didn't make any positive changes to this country? You get what I'm saying? So it's 2020. Our books haven't changed. We still talking about the same crap. I mean, you know, we skip over Malcolm X and Black Panther Party, and we say that they're bad and people, but if we look back, they were doing great things for our community because it needed it. If the Black Panther Party was here, the real Black Panther Party was here today, there wouldn't be these police killings because the Black Panther Party was there to protect that situation. But, you know, when you talk about that, the first thing they think about is violence. That's the only thing they can think about. And I'm going to say this. Where in history, I want you to think about all history that you know, has any African or Black ever went out their way to kill white people? Where has that ever shown up? I mean, where have you seen Africans invade Europe? Where have you seen Blacks take over the North, the South, or anything and kill a bunch of Black people? I mean, a bunch of white people. Where has that ever happened? I mean, think about it. To be considered so violent and so uncontrollable and everything, where are they getting that from? Where's that narrative from? Because even through history, there's nothing that shows that Blacks have ever done anything like that. But if we look at the true history, which they don't want to put in those books, is those things have been a white American or a white European. That was their claim to fame. That was what they did. And I'm not saying that what they did was the worst thing in the world, because there's people who did worse things. But all I'm saying is, if Blacks are so bad, why is there no history showing us doing those heinous things that we keep getting criticized or keep getting told about or or accused of, and there's nothing in there. Why wouldn't you put that in history to make us believe that? You know what I'm saying? But yet we have these statues that show these statues of your cousins and ancestors, of their cousins and ancestors, knowing that they did these heinous things to human beings. So why glorify those? So that's why I said take them down if you're not going to put up something next to it showing the heroes of the day that look like us.
Wouldn't that be nice?
That would be very nice.
Oh.
Well, I
Well,
gotta
they definitely-
not.
What?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, and this isn't like 100%, on the exact topic, but I'm not gonna say that I know people and I know them in detail, but I look at LeBron James, and he's been in the league 17 years. You haven't heard anything as sense of a parking ticket, but yet he gets ripped apart. He has people calling his friends a posse, in a sense that he's one of the few people that uplifts the people around him. He didn't satisfy and say, you know what, I'm gonna support y'all. He's like, no, I'm gonna help y'all, but you're gonna do your own thing. But yet everybody wants to bash him. People want to talk bad about him, and I think Byron, to like modern day of what you're talking about is where's the credit that he gets? People want to bash him about the decision, but people don't realize that he raised over $2 million for the Boys and Girls Club. But they don't care about that. They care about he made a spectacle of a decision. Okay, it doesn't matter what he made a spectacle of, but at the end of the day, look at what he's trying to do. Look at the school that he built in Akron. But we don't talk about all those things. We don't uplift our African Americans when they're doing something that is positive. And you got this man that has no college degree, or didn't have a college degree, came out of high school, was heralded as this number one guy, didn't crack under pressure, didn't do any of that, stayed the course, kept doing what he's doing, married a high school sweetheart.
And didn't have a father figure. Don't forget that. He didn't have a father.
No. So, again, this isn't about a statue of him or anything like that, but it just goes to say, like, we continually talk about negative things when it comes to him. Oh, he can't finish. Oh, he can't do this. But we don't talk about him in that positive light of all the good stuff that he does. And I think that's where I get frustrated, because if Tom Brady did any of this, there'd be a statue of Tom Brady in just about every city that he was in. From the second he stepped foot in that city. Oh, Tom Brady did this. J.J. Watt did what for when they had the hurricane down there?
Yeah.
Okay.
True.
Hand clap. That's good, right? I mean, I appreciate everything that he did. It didn't take a disaster for LeBron to do any of what he did. It took a need that he saw, and he wanted to fill that need and give kids a higher education that doesn't often get that opportunity. So again, I mean, I appreciate J.J. Watt, and I appreciate anybody who donates to any type of disasters. But when I look at it, that's a reaction to something. LeBron's putting in actions, and he doesn't need anything to happen. He just needs a need to be there, and I'm going to try to fulfill it. So sorry to go off on that tangent, but I just wanted to kind of tie that into how we don't uplift.
I appreciate
like
it. I love me some LeBron, and that's why I connect I'm a LeBron fan through and through.
I'm a Steph Curry fan, so we don't need to talk about this right now. Keep that on. What was it? Would that be on the deep third?
Yeah.
Come see us Sunday, deep third.
Okay, so what you said,
I'm about to say, go ahead, Byron.
Go ahead. What? Because I'm gonna transition from that, because I want to read something to you guys. It'll transition to our next topic and talking about Black people who we don't uplift and stuff like that. And I think we are lacking Black leaders. I think I had a conversation with one of my friends on Facebook, because it's COVID, but we were talking about Sean King, who is an activist, and I was like, he was like, he doesn't really like him because he comes out really straight out the gun. He doesn't really verify a lot of stuff, and I said, well, people like Malcolm X and Martin Luther King had their starts. You know, they didn't come out all great. We only heard about the great stuff they did. But before that, you know, other than making movies about them, you didn't know about what they were failing at or what they weren't good at. If they weren't good at doing speeches, somebody had to help them write a speech. You know what I'm saying? If they weren't good at, you know, if you didn't talk about those topics because they weren't talked about. We have a lot of issues with Black leaders because we don't have the representation. So because we don't have Black leadership, we often get confused when people are doing great for us or in our communities because we're so behind the bar in everything else, like finances and stuff like that. So you're struggling and you see somebody else able to do those great things, and your first mentality is thinking, dang, I wish I had what he had or she had. And then you become envy of it. So you skip over the praise of it. And that's a big thing in our community. But it's probably in some other communities too. But the other issue is that I can't address that because I'm not